Hello there, everyone, and welcome to DBAle Live.
Ooh.
Ooh, my name is Chris.
And my name is Chris.
And my name is also Chris.
Fantastic. Triple Chris threat on DBAle Live. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here at SQL in the City streamed. This
So
amazing
awesome.
learning opportunity.
Yep.
Now, we are joined here today, first of all, by our lovely beers, because it is DBAle. So we've got a Club Tropicana from a lovely Welsh brewery in here. But much more important than the beer today, we are joined by one of the most impressive, most wonderful, most insanely intelligent, brilliant people, Chris Yates, who is a friend of Redgate and a past director at large. But I'll let him introduce himself first.
Hey everyone! Thank you so much for having me on today. It's truly a pleasure. It's an honor. I am Chris Yates. As mentioned, I am a director of large for PASS and also a data platform MVP. Been in the business for about 20 years now. I've had a lot of different backgrounds, such as developer and DBA, which is one of the reasons why I'm here today. So I look forward to the conversations. I think it's going to be an exciting time, and it's going to be an epic ride. So giddy up.
Absolutely. So the purpose of today is that in this DBL live session, we're going to ask Chris some insightful questions and hear how, obviously, with this, it's been 20 years of Redgate in this SQL in the City streamed. Obviously, you've been here in the blink of an eye of that.
Whereas you've been here in two blinks.
Yes, just a wink. And we're going to see how Chris's
Well,
kind of,
a wink is half a blink. That made no sense. Carry on.
anyway, we're going to ask Chris some questions. We're going to get some insight into the past 20 years of what he's been up to, how he's developed, and how times have changed.
Cool. Sounds good to me.
Yep. Yep.
Sound good to you, Chris?
Awesome.
Ace.
Let's do it.
All right, let's kick things off then. And I want to start by asking you what first got you interested in SQL Server and why did you want to start
Oh, wow.
career in that
Okay.
industry?
That's an interesting question, and you're about to get some information that not a lot of people have. So it's classified. Um, I am a product of an accidental DBA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ah,
Um, Started out as a developer and got my hands wet with several different languages back in the day. And one of the things that we migrated to eventually was SQL backend platform, right? So as time progressed, I was afforded the ability to either go down that development path or did I want to get more involved in SQL, and I took the jump at SQL. So that's how it became more of an accidental DBA, getting involved with the backup methodologies and just the engine itself at the time. And I was the only SQL person at the shop, so it kind of made sense. So in any sense, that kind of morphed into being a DBA, where I grew. From there, I took on a DBA lead role and became a manager, and then to this day, a vice president and director of data and architecture. So it's kind of morphed over time. So I get to see both sides of the fences, and it's kind of cool to see how that relationship's grown over time as well. So, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point.
that's really cool. So it wasn't the rock star parties, limos,
Listen,
Vegas.
listen. There's a lot of late nights, a lot of work, but no, nothing glamorous by any means. Just hard work and dedication.
Nice. So you can kind of say that being an on-call DBA is a bit like having a pizza party, but slightly less fun.
There you go.
I don't want to ever go to any of your parties ever again, I think.
I have an amazing.
It sounds fantastic.
It's us, nothing but the greatest hits of the 80s, and the and basically just query optimization.
I'm
Yeah.
in. Let's do it.
Wait, was 99 Red Balloons 80s?
Oh,
Hmm.
man. I don't
Never,
even.
never going to remember. So, all right, I'll jump into the second question then before we talk more about red balloons. So, what have been the biggest changes that you've seen in the industry during your career? What are the biggest impactful changes?
Oh gosh. I mean, there's been a lot. I mean, just the growth of the product in and of itself over the past 20 years is just it's phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you're introducing things now like AI and things like that. So just from seeing where, even when I was introduced to it back in 2000, seeing from where it's been from there to now, it's just the astronomical growth and the different ways, the different avenues that you can go and learn and different things within inside SQL itself, and just the processes is crazy. There's a lot out there. It's hard for one person to know everything, right? So, and I think that's part of the joy and part of the fun of being in this environment and in this community, is that you're always learning. You have the opportunity to learn. So don't sell yourself short. Get out there, get after it, and that's what I've always tried to do. So,
has there been a particular change within those 20 years, something that you've kind of implemented the moment it's come out in a new release? Like some people couldn't
always
wait.
on AGs.
Nice.
Yeah, always on capabilities. Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the best features that I've liked over the course of the 20 years. So, yeah, it solves a lot of problems for us in our shop, and not just with us, from our local community as well. It's been big. So, and I know there's been a lot of use out of it. So, yeah, the AGs is probably it.
Nice, fantastic.
In terms of you personally, are there any particular highlights that spring to mind when you think about your career?
Oh wow.
Too many.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like everything's been done through hard work and dedication. I think that's how you get to where you want to go. I mean, if don't do anything halfway, you pour yourself into it. But as far as seeing the fruits of the labor, for me personally, and this might sound kind of goofy, but it's actually been helping people, right? I enjoy it. I have a passion of seeing other people grow. And I think for personally, back in 2011, that was a defining moment in my career, because I was introduced to a lot of things. Like I didn't know what a community was. I didn't know what PASS was. I didn't know what vendors who have products like Redgate were. So that particular time where a lot of people invested time in me made all the difference, and that left a lasting imprint. So for me, I want to do the same for other people, right? And I think you all can attest to that. Somebody probably in your own lives has invested time in you. So yeah, I think that's the fruitful part of what I get to do over these courses of the last 20 years, is seeing how other people grow, including myself, right? Because I still have that motivation, that fire is still there. I'm a competitive person. If the two Chris's that I'm talking to know more than me, well, sure, I want to know more. I want to know what you know, right? So that fire is still there.
Fantastic. Yeah, that takes me back to when we first met, Chris. Not you.
Yeah.
But when we met at PASS Summit last year, I think that was the first time we'd properly spoken face to face, and that kind of catch up. And it was just a coffee in the hotel lobby, and it was really nice to have that quite in-depth chat about things to pay attention to, things to learn, where to get started, and has been a huge driver in certainly the way I talk about what we do as well. So you've definitely had an impact on other people too.
I appreciate that, and you just nailed the topic on the head, right? Is those conversations, like it doesn't have to be just a pass, right? I mean, those conversations that you have, you never know who you're going to impact. You just don't. I mean, each day when you utter words, you're going to impact somebody, whether in a positive or a negative way. And the feeling's mutual, man. I mean, when we had our conversations, I really appreciated that. So I'll look forward to many more.
Oh,
sorry, Chris.
Not to feel left out.
That's fine. You're stuck with me on a daily basis. Poor old Chris just had to start with me at PASS Summit.
Yeah, that is true.
Here, let me do that. Let me do that to my hair too.
I just realised it had gone to one side. I put my finger in an electric socket. No, not really my look.
Yeah, I've got to spend like 20 minutes each day making sure that the gel is just right.
Which one?
Yeah.
Oh dear. So, Chris, obviously you gave me some great advice at that point in time, and it was so invaluable. But what advice would you give to anyone starting out in the industry today? Obviously, it's a very different beast, a very different place. And there's as you said, there's a lot more to learn. It's not just kind of what it was 20 years ago. It's so much more. What would your top points be for someone just starting out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I get asked this actually quite often, one of the main things that always I'm big on is when you look in the mirror, that's your motivation, right? That's who you're in competition with. You shouldn't compare yourself to other people, right? It's easy to do. If you look in our community or in the industry itself, you see top performers, right? And it's easy to say, oh, I want to be like that person. Oh, wait a minute, I want to be like that person. And that's okay. You take traits from those people and you learn from their past mistakes and you get their advice. But you are your own person. It's your journey. And I've always heard and I've always been told you are the CEO of your career, right? If you want to learn a new thing, go learn a new thing, right? And sometimes I know it's not always easy, but it's hard work and it's dedication and it's not a marathon. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So you have to pace yourself. You can easily get burned out. I won't be honest with you, I've been burned out before. Being a DBA, you're on call 24/7. I mean, I've been in those situations. Surrounding yourself with good people. One thing that I think has been key for me, and this dates back to 2011, is when I got back from the conference, is I needed to find 5 people. And 5, I think because I'm sports minded and I played basketball, right? So I do everything in 5s. I don't know why, it's just who I am. So picked 5 people who were in the industry, 5 people who are not in the industry, 5 people who were in my shop, and I asked them to help me, like invest time in me, be mentors, right? Not everybody's going to want to do it. Not everybody's going to want to be a mentor. Not everybody's going to want to take the time. But the ones that do, you can learn a lot from. So that might not be technical advice, but there's just so much technology that's out there that you can go and learn. If you set the solid foundation first and grow from there, it's key.
Fantastic.
That makes a lot of sense. There's, I guess, one kind of follow-on question. You said your kind of route into the industry was very much the accidental DBA route.
Yeah.
And I guess that terminology we hear quite a lot. But do you think that's still as prevalent these days, that route is still a strong way that people fall into that role?
Can I say it depends? Isn't that the proper answer to everything? It depends. I don't hear it as much. Doesn't mean that people don't go down that path, but surprisingly to me, and this is again me personally, right, is that I haven't heard it as much over the years, and maybe that's because of different learning pathways, right? And just the maturity of products over time. But I have seen a lot of people that strategically gone specific directions, and that even including being a DBA. But then you get in the same token, you have individuals as well that say, well, the DBA is going to be dead in so many years, and that industry, and it's ever growing. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
do you
think
that's true? Sorry, do you think that's true that the DBA will ever truly die?
No, I don't think so. I think it morphs, right? I think it'll morph over time to mean different things, and that's not to scare anybody away. But again, you got new technologies that come out all the time, and the skill set of a DBA is always there. So, and no, I don't think so.
Interesting. Something that we've been hearing a lot about recently is a lot of DBAs who have been participating in kind of more DevOps activities. Yep. Would you say
that's right?
A DBA is kind of becoming more of a hybrid DBA DevOps engineer?
Sure. Yeah, definitely could see that. And speaking from my own experiences, I mean, we're starting down that path as well, and in some regards, DBAs still play a role in that as well. And I think, again, that's one of the things that morph over time, right? I think that there's potential there. There's potential in other areas for the DBAs to get involved with cloud-based systems, anything. So I actually have some friends that are close to me that have gone the data scientist route too. So it's interesting to see some of those things that are starting to come out.
I guess the other one that we speak about quite a lot is the idea of the full stack dev, and how much more you've seen that these days. And again, is that something that you recognize as something that's grown, or has that always been around?
No, I think it's grown. I mean, in some regards, I guess you could say that it's been around for whatever time. But yeah, I think in the past, I don't know, 2 to 5 years, you've seen some growth in that area as well, and I think it'll continue to grow. So yeah, one thing I think is interesting on being both sides of the fence, and this is again just me personally, so you can ask somebody else and they might have a different view. I've had more growth as a DBA, and I don't know if it's because I was more exposed to things that I wasn't as a developer, but I think that cycle has changed somewhat as well, right? So it's interesting for me to be in the place that I'm in now and to look back when I was a developer starting out versus a developer that is starting out today. It's much different. It's not the same. You can't really compare the two. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep a pulse on.
That makes sense. So in terms of going back then over the time that you've been a DBA, have you got you mentioned there about being on call 24/7 and putting in the late nights and the times.
Yeah, sure.
What would you say is kind of your funniest memory of when things have not gone according to plan?
You mean things does it happen every time?
Yeah. So do I have to relate it to DBA? Can I relate it to being a developer, or?
I think both. Whatever.
Both. Okay. So I'm gonna use the term a pen cap, just a cap you put on a pen. When I first started out, you know, when you come to a company, they take you around and they say, hey, this is so-and-so, hey, this is so-and-so. And you meet a lot of people. Do you remember everybody? Nope. I got to one place, going down a row of cubes, and I'm going to protect the innocent. I'm not naming company names. I'm not naming people names. So as I'm coming down and we stop, and the person that was at the cube was not available. They weren't there. But I noticed a pen cap sticking out of the keyboard, and I was like, that is really weird. So we progress on, and as the day goes on, I go to lunch, and I'm thinking in my head, that pen cap is still bothering me. I got to know why, and that's the way my mind works, right? I got to know why. There's got to be a why. We got to know why. So I go back and introduce myself to the individual, and they proceeded to tell me after I asked the question, so I just got a question. I see a pen cap. What's up with it? It's still there, by the way. This is hours later. It's still there. Well, what I did was developer A, we had access to production. Okay. All right. Sure. Now you got to remember, this is years ago, right? So they had put in a message box or a message to spit out every time a certain criteria was met. Well, when you're loading a 1,000,000 record file, there's a lot of times the message box is coming up, right? So what they did was just stick the pen cap on the enter key so it held it down. Well, that was great and good, but what they didn't know is that it automatically would kick off again, right? So it was running multiple times with no duplicate checks in there whatsoever. So being the new person, in my mind, I didn't think that was right, but my mind went straight to, great, I'm the new person, I get to clean it all up, right? So anyways, that's probably one of the most memorable things that I've had happen, right? It's crazy. I mean, would you imagine doing that today? No, I mean, you get laughed at.
I would.
Yeah, so it was pretty fun.
At the moment is just constantly with a pen cap just on the keyboard. People just think I've fallen asleep on it.
Yeah, it's funny because the people who know this story, like especially locally, I mean, they'll give me a hard time every now and then. The friends that I've had that have been in my life since back then, and one day I just got a random mailing from just the USPS postal service, right? And it was a pen cap in an envelope. I'm like, seriously, that's been years ago. It's years ago.
We need to see if we can get like a special Redgate pen cap.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm sure after this airs, when we're going through this.
Is it a specific type of pen cap or just any generic
pen cap, man? Any pen cap.
Oh, I don't have a pen.
No.
If you see me break out in sweats and start to shake, that's why.
So I guess you faced quite a few obstacles over your time. Some of them being pen caps, some of them being
right. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest obstacle that is most commonly faced across the industry at the moment?
Communication.
Okay.
I mean, it's easy. I mean, anything that I've ran into in the past, sure. I mean, there's technical problems. Don't get me wrong. You work through those, but the common theme throughout my 20 years, communication. I mean, it's the root of everything, right?
Yeah.
If you, and it's worse today, right? For me, it is because I mean, I could be plugged into my phone all day long. I could be answering emails all day long, but that human interaction, if you're going back and forth with somebody over a problem and you're doing it in an email, talk to somebody, right? Pick up the phone, call somebody, do what we do. I can see your face, you can see my face, talk to somebody. And that's a lot of issues, right? That I see. And if you're waiting 2 weeks, I've seen it where you go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks and not have a problem resolved, and all it did was take two people getting in a room and discussing it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it seems pretty simple.
We can empathize with that.
Yeah.
It seems pretty simple. There's a thing that I have written on my board that says simple, clear, and concise. Right. And I have to keep going back to that. Okay, is my message simple? Is it clear? And is it concise?
Mm-hmm.
I don't always get it right. Sometimes I'm the problem, right? But you learn from that and you move on. But as far as the obstacles go, yeah, I mean, communication is the root of it, a lot of it.
So you mentioned like one fix, I guess, to that situation. One solution is to have face-to-face meetings, just communicate better, communicate more. Have you got
Sure.
any other general tips or any weird ways around that?
Well, I mean, okay, let's tie it back to technology. I mean, look at all the ways you can communicate today, right? I mean, back when I started, you didn't have any of this stuff. So I mean, you look at Microsoft Teams, you look at Jabber, you look at I don't know, Slack, you look at all these different methods, text, DMs, whatever. Um, everything is at our disposal. Everything is at our disposal, and yet, does it seem harder to you? In some regards, it does, maybe. But then there's okay. So let's go back to leadership for a minute. I want to talk about that. So when you tackle something like this, it's a balance. Leadership is a balance. When you communicate, it's a balance. Because if you don't communicate too early or too late on a problem, it can be catastrophic, right? If you are too aggressive up front, you're going to alienate people. So there's a balance, right? And that comes along with the communication piece, is that you have to balance when those. That doesn't mean you don't send a message or to somebody or an email, but it's common sense. I mean, I'm not good at it. I mean, I try to be, but I make mistakes. So when you're hearing this, doesn't mean that it's the end all be all perfect scenario, but you just strive to be better every day.
Cool.
That's interesting that you've touched on this kind of process that has to be improved and how you have to constantly adapt. And I think that kind of you can draw a parallel between that and not only yourself personally, but also how your career's developed, and also actually how processes at a company can develop. So
yeah,
how would you say, bearing that in mind, your development processes have kind of evolved over time? When 20 years ago ish, back when you started working with SQL Server, to now, what would you say have kind of been the biggest jumps in your development processes?
Less pendants?
Fewer pendants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at 20 years, I mean, that is a long time, right? I mean, to me, it's a period of time that you learn from your scars and your mistakes. So if I'm making the same mistakes today that I was making when I first started, that's a problem, right? My journey, of course, you find gents are a lot younger than me, but my journey should be further because because of the battles that I've been through, right? The experiences that I've had. You may have had some of the same, and you may not have, but if I haven't learned anything through those 20 years in regards to the communication, in regards to how something's developed or something, how DBA, then I'm not taking time to better myself, right? And that goes for everybody. I mean, it's just not me. There was a point in time in my career where I was satisfied, right? I did become satisfied. I wondered where my next step would be, and it wasn't long, but I think looking inward at yourself and wondering and doing inventory of where you want to be is okay to do. I don't think that you have to be on fire all the time, but I do think that it's important to be better than you were yesterday, and it doesn't have to mean that it's constantly about technology. It could be a personal trait of yours, right? Like, are you working on a relationship? Are you working on mending fences? It can be anything. Yeah, there you go. Give him a little Yates hug. So, anyways,
that's really cool though. So, is there anything that? So obviously, people have tuned in today to listen to us blither on about technical stuff, and this has been a really great kind of understanding about how things have evolved for you. So just for those kind of people who are after that more kind of what's that revolutionary technology, what would you say is the one piece of technology that's become part of your development process, particularly when SQL Server is concerned, that you would say has revolutionized that process?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back just with just my time with the new product releases on everything, right? So you have to take, if you look at when product releases are done, there could be a lot of things that are tied into a release. For me, it's picking the one thing that I think that would make a difference within my own team, within my own development that I need to know. I'm not going to know as much as everybody, right? I can't in where I'm at right now, but I can pick one thing that I can focus on, and I can know that one thing. We brought up HEs, right? So that was one thing that I wanted to know. What about PowerShell? That's another big game changer, right? You have things out there such as DBA tools and things like that that are just game changers for DBAs. That's another piece that I've tried to learn. So I don't think I could tie it to one particular piece, but if you focus on one thing that has come out and not just everything all together and really hone in on one thing, that's helped me with my knowledge of certain things. So
nice.
That help?
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
I think one final question.
And then we've probably run to time, and then the SQL in the City, the SQL in the City police will play our outro music.
Right.
So in your time, you mentioned you started as that accidental DBA yourself, and you kind of straddle this line between dev and the ops team.
Yep.
Now, but how would you say the relationship between those two roles, if you think of them as quite distinct, the DBA and the dev, how have you seen that change over the years? Has that changed? I hope so.
I think it's cyclical, right? I think it has changed to some degree. I always viewed it. This is how I always viewed it. So when I was a dev, I would blame the DBA, right? The DBA would then would blame the developer and the network or infrastructure person. Network infrastructure person, they don't like anybody, right? That's just how I viewed it, right? Like everybody, it was just a circle. Everybody. But now what I'm seeing is we can coexist, right? When you do work together, it works out a lot better. But that goes back to the key piece that I think is big in technology, is just that communication. If you're working in silos, if you're doing your own thing, it's not going to work, right? You're going to be banging your head against the wall. So tear down that silo, tear it down, and start interacting with your devs, your DBAs. I'll tell you what, it's not uncustom here to have everybody in the same room together talking about a problem. Does it always happen? No. But when it does happen, guess what? It's a lot better. So I should appreciate, if I'm looking at Chris on my left, who is a developer, Chris on my right, who is a network person, and Chris here, who's the DBA, I should be able to leverage you for your strengths to help me succeed, and you vice versa. That's the key piece.
And the fact that we're all Chris helps as well.
Hey, that's right.
Brilliant. So very wise words to end on. I think we've kind of run to time, but I want to take the opportunity to thank you, Mr. Yates. Thank you for joining us for our very first DBAle Live, for joining us for SQL in the City streamed, for Redgate's 20th birthday. Happy birthday, Redgate. and hopefully we'll be able to do one of these again, and maybe we can get like an hour and a half next time and hear more wise minds.
Let's do it. It was a lot of fun. And as we go, I just want to make sure that I mentioned that I really appreciate Redgate and the tools that you guys have. And you've had a huge impact on me. So really appreciate all y'all do.
That's great to hear, Chris.
Appreciate that.
Well, cheers to you and cheers to SQL in the City.
Cheers.
And we'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Take care.